Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to the Duval Dive. Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game.
And I'm Travis Holmes with BigCatCountry.com.
And listen to this thing on the Believe Podcast Network. And first of all, for those who are dads and those who are celebrating, happy Father's Day. Robert's saying it as well in the comments there. Yeah, Father's Day gets a bell. So yeah, with all that in mind, Travis came to me, as he often does, and we have many discussions, pulling back the curtain for a minute, as we do sometimes here on the Duval Dive, which, by the way, really quick, to both channel members, Social Alki over here to say, y'all about to cut in my House of the Dragon season premiere, and then Preston, good shout out, Alki, didn't know that was tonight. Duval Dive greater than House of the Dragon. Listen, this is what compliments look like, ladies and gentlemen, and we appreciate that all day, especially from two of our more noble and shall we? Well, no, we'll say noble because you're watching House of the Dragon, and that's cool. I'm a Game of Thrones person, though I'm not brave enough to try House of the Dragon yet. I'm gonna need to hear some feedback, but. Yeah, so thanks again to the loyal listeners and even the new ones coming in, which, by the way, something we want to announce real quick that Travis has gone to the lab and looked at quite a bit is we've been getting feedback from you guys to get our own swag out there, our own merch out there. And sure enough, you see Travis modeling the t-shirt himself, and it looks a little something like this. So make sure that you check the description. We'll have the link in there for you guys to do that. And hey, listen, it's just the same way we ask you guys to either gently tickle or throw a chair at the like button. It's the thing that keeps us running and doing the thing that we do for you. But enough about that. So Travis came to me setting up for today's show and was wanting to compare the two GMs, right? How often have I said on this show, Travis, that the healing can begin, that the real evaluation for one Jimmy Stones has truly begun? And one can argue that they're the air quotes father figures for a franchise at the GM position, figuratively, of course. Let's not get too sappy over here. But there's a lot of comparison that we got to take. What real difference is existing in this world here with Liam Cohen and company that isn't with Littlefinger? Sorry, I had to do it. Y'all making Game of Thrones references in there. But so I mean, by the way, and as Travis D. Home often does, he sets the table with accompanying content on Big Cat Country, talking about Baalke's best non-first round Jaguars picks, which is actually objectively a fascinating conversation. So Travis, I think I set the table pretty nicely. Where do we want to head here first, more specifically?
Well, I mean, we as you already said, you already given them the access behind the curtain to kind of how this thing works. Like, this is more so going to be a generalized report card to kind of take an inventory of what the Jaguars have been given from both the general managers, the leadership groups, because many Jaguar fans and media, like myself, we've already been talking about the old Trent Baalke draft classes because we're entering, basically year 4. A lot of these guys are being the ones that's considered for extension. So it makes total sense to say, hey, man, this dude wasn't as bad, or maybe he was a little bit better than you thought he was going to be. Fine. I'm here for that. But I wanted to remind everybody else of the conversation that you and I had when he was officially hired, James Gladstone. I said to you, and you agreed, that as of year 2, after that offseason of year 2, is when we were going to start grading Gladstone on the same playing level that we graded Baalke, right? Mm-hmm. Well, again, most NFL teams, when you're early in a regime change, like, they're normally built on free agents. So we thought we'd start the conversation with free agents and trades, kind of just, again, setting that table. Free agents, they're normally older, they're more experienced, they're generally more dependable, while your younger guys develop. Teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, the Baltimore Ravens, like, those are the ones who are later in their contender years, their contender windows, and they kind of let guys go over and over and over because they're not able to consistently replace those guys in the draft. That's where that tug and that pull kind of comes, right? But the Jaguars, they're reasonably early in that window because now they're letting guys go like Travis Etienne, like Devin Lloyd. So now we're seeing what that kind of looked like. So, all right, so cool. How did we grade old Trent Baalke, the old monster? Yeah. Yes, Littlefinger. Yeah, as he is so passionately called in this fan base. So how did the Jaguars fans praise Trent Baalke when he was here? They improved by 6 games in his second season, moving on from Urban Meyer. They won a division championship. When it's basically once he got paired with a good coach like with Doug, and I would at least call Doug that, they were reasonably solid, and they were top, I believe, 3 in available salary cap space heading into that 2022 offseason.
Right.
So Trent Baalke hit on multiple free agents that offseason. He helped the team in the short term, but then he struggled after that, like in trying to develop those other guys to take over for those free agents that he originally signed. So like he wasn't able to get out that cycle. So folks got impatient with his build. We know how this happened. So let's get into the free agents. That's kind of what
got impatient with his build. Dougie P told the press they don't know ball, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's what it is. So we're going to get into it. That's where we are. So we made this list. We talked about it a little bit, but we really want to get into the specifics of it. Trent Baalke's free agents, Trent Baalke's trades, and then that will help us set the baseline for how we should grade James Gladstone. Sound good? I hope we're in agreement. Let's move it.
All right.
Woo! So.
What a list, by the way.
What a list. 20 free agents and or trades. And again, this is not everyone. We're not naming every single transaction because sometimes if you get to the lower guys, it's just that's not worth your attention. That's not worth the conversation. Just my personal opinion. But let's start that bad boy off with Christian Kirk. You and I both agree, Kyle. Yeah. That's a hit. In every book, that is a hit for the Jacksonville Jaguars in that 2022 offseason. And we kind of labeled each individual category, whether a guy's going to be a hit, whether he's going to be a miss, or whether he's someone we could like to consider like the in between. He's core depth. He did what he was supposed to do when we brought him in, when the team brought him in. And hopefully that was enough to call it not necessarily being a miss, but maybe not a superstar grand slam, if that makes sense.
Right. A contributor, but not necessarily somebody who was end all be all. He certainly wasn't a detriment to the team, like one would say, for example, this past season, Walker Little was at times at left tackle.
Yeah. So we had a few guys that where I know there is going to be some disagreement in the fan base, and I'm okay with that. For instance,
and we're looking for the contribution, by the way, guys. If you could look away from House of the Dragon for just
like Kyle and I, we both landed on the fact that Zay Jones is someone that we both considered core depth on this team. He was a starting caliber, wide receiver for the Jaguars in that 2022 season. He then had some injuries as far as that's concerned, and kind of at that point he was then jettisoned off to Arizona. Like, so you're kind of. You can say he did what you expected him to do, maybe even a little bit better in that first season, but he was also a multi-year free agent that didn't see the end of his contract. So I don't know how you really want to feel about that. That's where it gets a little bit murky.
Yeah, well, and especially with Zay, right? And I think what lock jams me is that there was time that he missed in that season in 23. Mm-hmm. And it was obvious when he did. There was no short range check down when, Kirk or Ingram. Because back then, Evan Ingram wasn't blocking. He was actually a deeper piece there, too, right? Zay was a big contributor. He just didn't contribute every game because of injury issues. You can't call him a miss for the impact he had. And that's why we called him core depth, I think.
That's it. And then he is your wide receiver 3. So that's not necessarily a starter, but they played starting level snaps. That felt like a reasonable spot to put him in at the end of the day.
And it depends on how you he's one of those where it's depending on what the formation is as to whether or not he's a starter, right? Just throwing that out there.
Sure. I mean, Foye Oluokun, obviously a hit. We ain't got to spend no time on that, man. Come on. Foley Fatukasi, Foloranzu Fatukasi, core depth is where we put him, even though he was absolutely a starter for this team. It's hard to call him a hit because his injuries took him off the field so frequently that it was just hard to depend on him. Not significantly different than like a Cam Robinson, where the dude, if you just miss enough time, it's not going to be worth having that contract of what you're paying that guy. And eventually you got to get off that roller coaster just for guys who are going to actually be available.
Yeah. And this is, I think Preston says what we were saying about Zay, and I think Foley falls into this as well. Kind of mid, but played a role for us. And I think Foley could have, the pendulum swung pretty wide on him because he was able to make a difference stopping the run, which was something the Jaguars was struggling with at this point, right? They certainly weren't the top team in the NFL stopping the run,
Right.
in 23 by any stretch of the imagination. So Foley was the guy that would, on rare occasion, make an impact in the run game, right? The run numbers the defense allowed was significantly different when Foley was off the field. So, if he could stay on the field, if he could stay healthy, that would be different. But yeah.
That's it. It would have been great. Brandon Scherff was one that Kyle and I knew there would be some sort of an argument on, because we both agreed that he was a miss for the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2022. And I know he was his Pro Bowl level offensive guard that the team brought in to stabilize the offensive line. But even if you don't remember exactly what happened, I guarantee you guys remember your feelings. You never felt good about that role. You never felt good about that spot. You always felt like they needed to upgrade that spot at all the time, and he was also getting paid very good money at the same time. And unfortunately,
let's be careful. The spot everybody wanted to upgrade was center at some point here too. Like let's be clear about that, right? The notorious center spot was where everyone was griping, but the next thing on the list there too, when it wasn't that position, was that guard where Scherff was, right? It's a line that has been deemed bad, and that was the worst part of it, was the guard center portion there too. And Robert makes a point there too, and he's correct. Brandon Scherff seemed to be hurt all the time. Again, we cite Cam Robinson. I think that's a fair comparison.
I mean, yeah, you say either or, and I hear you. I'm just saying, from my perspective, it was always both of them. It wasn't either or, it was both of them.
I don't need to imply either or. No, please put "and" on my behalf. Absolutely.
So, I mean, yeah. So at the end of the day, I consider Brandon Scherff a miss. And if you want to argue and you want to say that he was a hit, cool. I mean, I think we're lowering the bar.
Your explanation if you think he was a hit.
Yeah,
that's what the comments are for. Let me know if you see it there, divers. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, go ahead, buddy.
Darius Williams, I had him as a hit. Kyle, I think you seemed to be reasonably in agreement there.
I did. The man got too many takeaways to not be a conversation. He may not have been the best in the NFL, but he was the best that the Jags had at the time, in my opinion, in a lot of ways. And he was snagging takeaways, but they opted to have the conversation about Cisco or it would have been at the time.
Oh no, that's when they moved on to Ryan Nielsen. They went from a heavy zone scheme to a heavy man scheme, and
right, exactly.
Yeah.
These are all things tied in, right? So that happens, right? And then it was the whole Cisco versus. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the corner's name already. Now I had it in my head.
Cisco versus Tyson Campbell.
Tyson Campbell, thank you. And who should be extended and invested in and all that. Like, this is around that time. Granted, Cisco and Campbell might have slightly even predated Nielsen, now that I think about it. But yeah, that drama was all there too. But in the meantime, Darius Williams was not a focus, and they moved on from him. But I thought he was a hit for what he was while he was in Jags.
For his expectations, I thought that was a hit. Like, and Evan Ingram, I don't think there's a question. Another hit. Arden Key on that 1-year deal was a hit. As much as folks in Duval didn't like the fact that he left to go to the Tennessee Titans and all the stuff that he, mayor of Duval and all this other conversation, that's just ridiculousness. The man was a hit, and the Jaguars 4 years after he left missed that rotational third edge that he was. So like they should have re-signed him. They didn't. But Arden Key was a hit for the Jacksonville Jaguars on that low-cost 1-year deal.
Right, and I think this came up when we were discussing the episode, Travis. We're speaking to the acquisition of the player and whether it was a hit. What happened with his departure may have been an awkward situation, i.e. Arden Key, for example. Robert says it in the comments here, as Key was a key backup. I see what you did there, Robert. Robert Lambert said. But yeah, so no, I think we're all in agreement on that. You could call him core depth, but considering what their defensive end situation was, I think he was more than that. I think he was an impact player.
A lot more than that. Thank you. I mean, I don't want to say cornerstone or mayor of Duval or nothing like that, but the man was, but the man was important, and that's fair. I think overall. De'Ernest, I mean, there's a few misses. We'll just breeze through them if you don't mind, unless you have any pushback for me. De'Ernest Johnson.
I think we agreed on a lot of these next few, and certainly the last of these next few. But go ahead.
No, you can get them. Hey, you want to name them? Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I mean, we said De'Ernest Johnson, Josh Wells, Brandon McManus at kicker, and Gabe Davis were all misses here. I mean, I think it was a matter of De'Ernest Johnson. He may have had moments of shine that you and I both observe, but it was more because they didn't have anybody else to run that running back core, right?
I think
Then
it's fair.
what? Josh Wells did not play a snap of meaningful football by default, even whether it's his fault or not, because injuries aren't any player's fault. Ish happens. I get it, but that's a miss from the organization's perspective. You're brought in to do X. You couldn't even do a fraction of Y. That's all I'm saying.
They wanted him to be core depth, and he didn't play for the team. Injuries or whatever the reason is, it is what it is. That was a miss. It sucks. That's the game of football. And somebody might disagree that Brandon McManus wasn't a miss, but I mean they were only signed him on the 1-year deal, but they didn't re-sign him. He was a long ball kicker who wasn't as accurate as you would want for a long ball kicker. I believe he was 50% on the season over 50 yards.
12 beyond 50 was what I believe we discussed. But and here's the thing: what we got to remember, and I think this is just an interesting conversation with the state of special teams, such that it is right. This is well before this is before Cam Little obviously caught on and did the thing. Like 6 for 12 beyond 50 at one point, guys, used to be an acceptable rate of fire for a kicker in the NFL. We're not there anymore, right? We're in a day and age where if you can't kick a 60, you're like less than mid, right? There are UFL kickers that are kicking 60-yard field goals, right? Including Tanner Brown, their special teams player of the year, right? I don't know. I have some of these names etched in my skull from the Storm Surge, and we go over the state of the kicking game there too in a few episodes. So anyways, but that's I think it looks more like a miss now than even if it did. But yeah, to your point, Travis, I can argue and pound the table for him and the different standards all I want. The team moved on from him. They didn't cut him. They just let it fall. And so that to me says they think it was a miss. I'm not going to tell them they lying about their opinion of a player. So yeah, they think he's a miss. I'm gonna call it a miss. And well, we don't need to get into Gabe Davis. That makes me cry.
Gabe Davis, that was an easy one. And I'm a UCF guy. That stinks. Sorry to hear it. But yeah, I mean, Eric Armstead, I knew that felt like somebody trolling or whatever else because I put him as core depth. Kyle and I went back and forth on this one for a little bit. I think we both agreed that was probably where it should have been because one, his availability, let's start there. And the fact of the matter is they played him out of position in his first season. So if you're getting him as your defensive end 3, but you needed a defensive tackle, you hustle him backwards already just to start there. So you're getting the guy as a defensive end 3. And he started off last season in 2025 as a pretty reasonably dominant, 3 technique defensive tackle. Cool. And then he falls off towards the end of the year. I don't know what to expect of that. And you're paying him the cost that you're paying him almost like he's a Pro Bowl level, maybe not all pro, but definitely Pro Bowl level defensive tackle. I'm just expecting more from him, but I can't call him a miss, but I absolutely think he probably should not necessarily be looked upon as a hit.
Yeah, well, and then a very interesting point by Robert. He believes that he could fire off the line faster than Eric Armstead at the edge. So yeah, I think that accounts for that evaluation there too.
All right. Mitch Morse was a hit in my book. He stabilized that line from the and that was the overall reason that he was hit, that he was brought in to not have Luke Fortner manning that role. He did his job. He retired. It is what it is. If you disagree and you want to call him core depth, that's on you. I get it. But I'm putting him as a hit.
Yeah, we agree on this one, right? He was said, hey, fix the center spot. That's what we need to do. Like, granted, Luke Fortner was the best backup in the league at one point, mostly because he was that bad as the starter, according to Travis T. Holmes. But we make the joke here. Mitch Morse, he had one mission, and he knew he was patchwork. He collected a check. He moved on and had a great time. Listen, win-win for both sides. I agree. I think these next two, and there's comments on it here. I think I was smart enough to mark it. No, I wasn't, but I'll find it. But yeah, Darnell Savage and Ronald Darby. This is your part of the house, man. Walk through these for us.
Bro, these were easy misses for me. I thought Ronald Darby was going to show up like he showed up for the Baltimore Ravens in the previous year. He didn't. And you can blame some of that on Ronald Darby. You can blame some of that on Ryan Nielsen, how no one seemed to take the next level up within that defense and the developments and the coaching and all of that. But also you can argue the exact same thing for Darnell Savage. And again, I don't know if it's because those guys weren't being put in the position to play well, or as far as the coaching is concerned, or just the lack of an interior pass rush, a lack of a third pass rusher, or as far as the defensive end. It gets so many moving pieces. That 2024 team just had all the issues on that defense. So it's hard to say if that's on one thing or the other, but at the end of the day, it's going to fall on the GM because a lot of those guys are gone for that reason.
And in the comments, Preston mentions Darius Williams as a factor here. The release of Darius for Darby hurt Savage. Like, I don't know if you're saying that was Savage or you're talking about Darnell Savage and Cisco. Let me know. But yeah, Cisco and Savage failed essentially, and the moves in the secondary were the red wedding.
I said this to John Shipley the offseason when it happened. I said it on the sideline, and it was if it wasn't mini camp, might have been rookie mini camp. I said the worst thing for this freaking franchise is if they have to turn around and flip from a Mike Caldwell defense and they go back to a zone defense next season. How crazy would that be? And the reason I said that is because it was such a significant flip on the skill set they were looking for in that secondary, going from guys who were really strong in zone defense to the guys who were really strong in man defense. And one season later, we are under Anthony Campanelli defense that is primarily zone. And I'm sitting there like, Lord, that's exactly what happened. Because if they would have just kept Darius Williams, it would have just been, they would have been in a significantly better spot as a secondary. They're still good now. So it's kind of like, no, but they've had to pay for it. You know what I mean? Like a lot of that dead cap from Tyson Campbell's contract just by itself. Like there's multiple reasons why this obviously didn't work out in the best way because of those Trent Baalke moves.
Yeah, no, and I think there's a lot to that. And like, there's a comment here. Let me get this out of the way here too. Like, Brofro in the comments says, "Why this roster talk about? Why this roster talk about what we have? Talk about what we have now. That was then. This is now. We are in a better space under Corwin. Yeah, but that's the part that you're not understanding, folks.
You're missing.
Like, here's where I'm going, Brofo. The pieces at this point in their respective careers, both Baalke and Stones were in that same space. Yeah, that is then, this is now, but there are things to compare, right? And both of them found themselves in a position, Baalke and Stones, to take this franchise to have the first pair of good years, playoff years, if you will, since 99. Okay? We saw what happened with Baalke's opportunity. And the reason why we're having this conversation is so we can acknowledge, A, what Stones has to beat, B, what Stones has to heal the Jaguars from, and C, the time is now for us to start grading him with a full offseason under his belt, as we promised you divers that we would. So you asked the question, why are we talking about this? That was then, this is now. We're setting the tone.
Right. We're going to get to. We're going to get to Gladstone in a quick moment, but we also want to have the conversation of what it was, because if you guys, I want to make sure, whatever paintbrush you graded or whatever pen or permanent marker you graded Trent Baalke with, I want to be also fair to James Gladstone and talking about the differences, but I also want to be fair to Trent Baalke and say we're going to then grade you, James Gladstone, on that same curve, whatever that ends up looking like. So that's all I'm getting at. So actually, let's hop into these trades, man. Cole Van Landen and those guys.
Yeah. Oh, and real quick here, Preston mentions in the comments, I've had my fun trashing Baalke, but the guy built a good roster, and at times, completely true, right? Stones is fixing a few issues, but for the most part, fantastically put the finishing touches on it. Yeah, and I think that's the difference, right? That's what we're going to be seeing as the year goes on. But yeah, so opening up with Cole Van Landen, listen, and Travis, I think you match me here, buddy. I'm taking the liberty because this is offensive line we're talking about here. Cole Van Landen's success is essentially half a season's worth of football out of, like, I forgot he's going into a fourth season / fifth year here. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, he's been here a minute and he's missed an awful lot of time. And now he's got a bag, and the rumors are that he's still battling injury, and there could be potential issues with him coming up. Again, all speculation and rumor. We have nothing confirmed yet, obviously, but that prevents us from making him a hit. I'll put it that way. Go ahead, Travis.
Right. That's the hard part, because I can say he's a hit, maybe, he seemed to be a hit in 2025 under this coaching staff, sure. But if you're talking about the acquisition, and then the acquisition is included in how you use the guy. If you only played, if he start like Cole Van Landen after being traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars in that 2022 season, started 0 games in 2022, 0 games 2023, and 3 games due to injury in 2024. Not great. I'm just going to call that what it is. And yes, that meant that he needed some development. I'm here for all of that conversation. And this current staff seemed to get the most out of that guy. I can also get down with that conversation. But at the end of the day, the acquisition definitely didn't help out the coach who was on the staff at the time of that trade. Definitely didn't help out the general manager, who was the one who actually got that guy. And you know why? Because they didn't use him in that way. So from that general manager's perspective, it was not a good acquisition. And you can then later argue that it was good for these guys because they knew how to actually use them. If I could just if I just keep collecting all these guys, but I don't have an actual identity or know how to use these guys, it's not a great acquisition right now. It could be for the future, if that makes any sense, for a different staff, but that don't help me in my job. That's why they both out of jobs, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, they're Trent's out of a job because Liam and another used to work with him.
In Jacksonville. Let me be clear. That does matter. So Cole Van Landen, I put as core depth because that's exactly how they use them, and I think that's actually reasonable. Hopefully, the arrow is pointing up now, moving forward, and he will be a lot more than that. And then Calvin Ridley. I know folks might not agree with that, but I do think that was a hit. They gave up, I believe it ended up being a 3rd round pick and a 5th round pick for him. They didn't keep him because they didn't match the contract. Probably shouldn't have gotten the free agency in the first place. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, whether or not he should have made it the free agency is the true question here, right? But again, it's about the acquisition of the player, not the departure. The other piece, though, I will speak to on this. Yeah, I see you, brother. The piece I will speak to on this. If y'all are true Duval devout, you love the fact that the Jags used him as an opportunity to hurt the Titans. We don't like that team in Tennessee is what I keep hearing from you, Duval devout. But yeah, anyway, this is showing how important it is to have a head coach and a GM on the same page. Make no mistake, we're getting to that around the ball. Okay, that's the thing we're going to talk about here to wrap this up for sure. Really was a hit because it made the Titans overpay. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks. Good job, Reyes. Yes, we are in agreement.
Yeah. I accept the Father's Day gift from you, brother. Anyway.
Yes, Ezra Cleveland was absolutely a hit before Trent Baalke was fired. Like that, we knew that he seemed to be reasonably fine, despite dealing with some injuries in his first season here. And there's been a lot of conversation in the chat about whether or not Mac Jones was a hit. Mac Jones was a hit, bro.
Yeah, I saw that. I want to pull that. Reyes mentions it earlier. Mac Jones a hit. When Trevor went down, he didn't really do anything to help the Jags win. I'm not saying it was his fault, but I don't think he was a hit like he was in San Francisco. Reyes, if he's not a hit, then how did that's the wrong one. How did the Niners even see enough film to get him? Right? You got to understand, BTJ broke out and was what he was with Mac Jones. Now, then he wasn't without Mac Jones. Do I think that means Mac Jones is a better quarterback for BTJ? No, I don't. What I do mean is the man went in with bonding, red tape and bonding wire, okay? And that's made something out of BTJ, right? Granted, it didn't show in the wins column, duh. But like, if he was that bad, granted, the Niners have done some magical things with quarterbacks. I'm not going to sit here and act like that's not a thing too, but yeah, it's hard for me to side with him not being a hit for what he was asked to do.
He plays good in the offense where you throw blind. And that's the biggest thing is Purdy's talked about that in their offense also. A lot of the time you're throwing with trust. You're believing that guys are going to be in the spot. When you throw the ball, you don't actually see them. You're throwing on rhythm. And he's good in that offense where you don't have to really think and you don't have to really, you just read the defense and you throw the ball. I get it, but that's not what Doug Peterson's offense was. And that makes sense why he didn't do as well, but I think he did reasonably enough to be considered a hit, especially for a low round draft pick.
100%. And this comment here, first, God of Chair. I don't know what that means, but I'm entertained by both that tag and that thumbnail. Anyways, the head coach got to hand pick a GM. I think it's fair. He doesn't have as much say as most GM. That's interesting.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that though.
Well, no, tell me where you don't. I mean, I'm not saying this dude's right, but it's an interesting concept to explore.
When you say don't have as much say as most GMs, I would say half of the league right now have a situation that looks more similar to the Jacksonville Jaguars situation, where you have a leadership structure. Maybe not half the league, but maybe I'll put it closer to maybe like a third of the league have a structure where these guys are in lockstep. They're in sync and they're getting on the same page, where it's like they have to come to a consensus and agreement to draft guys to also make sure they all are in lockstep and having the right identity of the team. And that's not a bad thing to have. Like the Detroit Lions are in that same way. And I know that a lot of these guys are, you're talking about coming from the 49ers, the Rams system. So maybe that's why you're seeing a lot more of that, because you have that in LA, you have that in Jacksonville, you have it a little bit of in Tampa, you have it in Detroit, you have it in Minnesota. So there's some give and take on why you're seeing it, but it's because it's been successful that you're seeing it in all these various places.
I think another element there too, where it may feel like Stones has a little less influence, is Trent Baalke. Check that. Tony Boselli is also very prominently involved with certain aspects of it. You don't, in a lot of franchises, you don't hear about, what is kind of a triumvirate at the top. Granted, I'm not here to imply that Boselli has as much power as Liam Cohen or Jimmy Stones, but you sure seem to hear a lot more about him than you do dudes in that position at other places. I'll just throw that out there as a possibility.
I think Around the Ball HQ said it best, right? That the head coach might have picked the GM, but I don't think that means he doesn't have the say as other GMs.
Right.
Like,
I agree.
Yeah, I think he handpicked the guy from the same organization he came from had the same mindset. So again, they're in sync. They understand each other. They don't have to rebuild the conversation or rebuild their communication, because they were already like in a good. They were already in the boat together in the previous spot. Being in the boat together at the new one is kind of goes hand in hand. So from my perspective, that made total sense. And also, we didn't talk about this earlier, so I figured I'll just point out the one major issue in having this conversation of comparing these guys, just for context, is most fans probably don't remember that Baalke was hired following Dave Caldwell, and the Jaguars, they were 19th in the league in dead cap, and they had $23 million in dead cap at that time. And they were first in the league in available cap space. So Baalke,
he had the most cash to play with, basically.
Baalke, he wasn't hamstrung in no way. Like, he wasn't limited in any way, so he could pay guys above market price. I mean, we had those conversations in this Duval County fan base talking about, Christian Kirk above market price, but then he ended up doing well enough to make the contract look good, and that worked out better. But if it didn't, then you would be saying, but he overpaid. Like, I think that's a fair,
like we do with Gabe Davis.
Exactly. So, but also the other part of that equation is, as soon as Baalke's cap situation became as tight as what we see James Gladstone cap situation currently is, that was back, I believe, in that 2023 and 2024 offseason.
Yep.
All of a sudden, when you have all that extra cash, that extra 5% or 10% that you can pay guys on these contracts available, you started seeing free agency misses start showing up in a big way. And that was in back-to-back seasons, 2023 and 2024. That's when it started. And I just think
generation of what had happened is what we'll call it. Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting, that as soon as it got tight and that lemon booty started popping up a little bit, all of a sudden he started missing on guys in free agency. So, like, looking at the cap situation, this is what Gladstone is facing, just for comparison. Again, you had the first in the league in available cap space for Trent Baalke, and you were 19th in the league in dead cap. These are really good situations for a new GM starting off. For James Gladstone, 2025 and 2026, they have the seventh highest dead cap in 2025 with $84 million. And in 2026, right now, they're ninth in the league with $54 million. And that's the ninth highest in dead cap. In the cap space last year, they were 23rd in the league with $7 million. And in right now, they're $10 million in cap space, and they're 24th in the league. These aren't good situations. So obviously, Baalke was playing on easy mode, and James Gladstone in some ways is playing on all Madden, and I will acknowledge that.
Yeah, right. Well, after all, we never heard about with Baalke. He had to deal with the sins of whoever the previous GM was, and
James Dave Caldwell, his guy.
Yeah. So the sins of Dave Caldwell left him in a bad place. No, he just got fired because the team was bad. I mean, that's
Fair.
not, from a fiscal perspective, we don't see those same sorts of, shall we say, comparisons, right?
Yeah, but with that context and those limitations acknowledged, maybe we'll get into let's get into the ingredients. What did they buy with that budget? Let's see, the James Gladstone. We know that he didn't have the budget, the first in the league as far as cap space is concerned, but we know he got some guys, and we know he has some hits, he has some misses. Let's talk about what they are. De'Ami Brown.
De'Ami Brown, like that's a miss.
Yeah, it's a miss. It is what it is. I can't. It was a 1 year miss. It was a $10 million, a little bit of an overpay for 1 year, but it was what it was. You took a risk. You crapped out. It is what it is. But it was only 1 year, and you're out of there. Patrick McCarry is a starter, and again, we're doing this a little bit different as far as starters. Instead of saying hits miss, we're just saying starters because I think as we don't know how it's going to end with James Gladstone's original free agents. Most of these guys are still here. I just thought that would make it a fair conversation, at least overall.
Yeah, here's the thing, and I'm going to push back a little bit on Macari as a starter because, again, on this very show, evidence to the contrary was provided. I shouldn't say evidence, but theories to the contrary were provided by both Emery Hunt and JP Acosta that Emmanuel Pregnon would compete for and possibly take that starter spot. So until we can put that in Sharpie, I'm not ready to say starter outright. But that being said, because he is the de facto, I understand why you put it. I'm not objecting. I'm just saying we acknowledge that the possibility of that X in that column may change in the next, shall we say, month or two, right? So
okay. Jordan Lewis, starter. Robert Hainsey, starter. I don't think these are questions for me. I mean, again, if you want to tell me that you think Jarian Jones is going to be the starter over Jordan Lewis, I could hear that argument because Jarian's plays so well in the slot. But at the end of the day, presumptive guy, sort of like the Patrick McCarry conversation, I'm going to lean on that probably being the case until you show me otherwise on the grass. Cool. Chuma Edoga, I got to call that a miss. I'm just going to call it a spade a spade. I think that he's probably not going to make this roster if you have a healthy offensive line right now.
I mean,
it is what it is. It's a low risk original signing for depth. You could call him core depth if you like to, and I wouldn't argue so passionately against it. But at the end of the day, I think it was probably a miss.
Oh, and the reason why you won't is because I am. So there you go.
All right. Eric Murray definitely started. I think that's a hit, no matter how you want to slice that, despite the fact that he had injuries and everything. He absolutely raised that safety room. We talked about Darnell Savage. That's the exact opposite of that. We talked about Cisco. That's the exact opposite of that. That's a stabilizing force hit starter. Johnny Munt, Hunter Long, even though one of these guys is still on this roster, I think that might not, fingers crossed. I mean, that could potentially not be very long on this roster as it stands for Hunter Long. I mean, I consider both of those misses. They wanted those guys to come in to be depth for this roster in that tight end room. And when they had the increased opportunity with Brent Strange getting hurt, they just didn't rise to the occasion like you kind of expected them to.
Yeah.
But they knew the offense, but they just didn't seem to take off. They didn't seem to dominate as far as that's concerned. Like Johnny Munn actually did well as far as zone blocking was concerned. But just overall, it just wasn't consistent enough.
Like there was that.
That's it. Consistencies and availability. Nick Mullins is probably one that folks will disagree with me on when I say he's core depth, because they just have not brought in anyone that's even reasonably average to compete with him. To say he's not, because honestly, I don't think he's played to the level of being someone I would consider core depth, but it is what it is. He is there in the spot.
We really had to see, and this is a good thing that we haven't, let's be clear, but what opportunity we really had to see him cook. Whereas, with Mac Jones, he got
outside of practice. Yeah, outside of practice, right? Because some people are gamers, and that's actually a fair point by you. Some people are gamers, and they're not playing the best in practice or something like that, or training camp. I've seen a lot of the
ball was an interesting point here too. I didn't think of. Mullins was there to help Trevor learn, and that seemed to work. And I mean, that's a theory. I won't diss it, but yeah.
I think I don't passionately disagree with it, because I think that might have actually been the case, especially in that original offseason when you have guys in the locker room around you, no different than the Jordan Lewis and the Jarian Jones conversation. You have these veteran guys to help these guys kind of get the playbook under their belt, to get the right habits under their belt. I don't disagree that was a philosophy, but the fact that Nick Mullins is still here in this second offseason with no one pushing him behind, that's a rough one for me. I can't pretend that that's not the case.
Yeah, I'm seeing in the comments a couple times here, Quentin Morris not being listed here. I don't think he has quite enough for us to really evaluate either. Like that's like, and I appreciate you guys calling it out. Hey, where is he? You want us to talk about him, but like,
I won't say it's not accurate. I didn't list every single person for Trent Baalke, and I said that opening the conversation. Right. You're not wrong that he is missing, but he also started the season off on the practice squad. Right. And then ended up playing later in the season. And yes, so yes, it is a free agent signing, and I probably should have listed it, but in all honesty, I didn't view it as such.
Yeah, he doesn't have quite enough, in my opinion, to really know. It's like the same thing we said. The only reason we had Cole Van Lannon on the last list for Baalke is because he's here for 4 years and he's in the conversation.
That matters, and I don't know the future. Because if Quentin Morris doesn't make, because we were talking about the extension, forgetting that extension was a 1-year deal, and I believe it was like, what was it, $3 million? There's no guarantee that Quentin Morris is going to make this roster right now as we're actively talking. Great. And then we're having an entirely different conversation about whether or not that's quote unquote core depth. So I don't know. Yeah. I'm okay saying I don't know.
And again, Around the Ball mentions here, Morris is core. They drafted 2 more TEs, obviously. Now, granted, we know nothing there too in that instance. In my mind, that's just going to be a competition that happens in camp. Welcome to a world with Stones and Cohen at the helm. It's just what it is.
That's it. So I wasn't going to list every single guy.
I love that you guys called it out, though. That's
they paying attention.
The divers be diving. I love it.
They keep us sharp. You guys keep us sharp, and I'm appreciative of it. But that don't mean now I'm going to disagree with you sometimes. It is what it is. Fred Johnson. We know that was a miss because he was not here by week 1. That was pretty easy. Chris Rodriguez, you kind of have to hope that he's at minimum going to be core depth, and I think that he absolutely will be. But there's even a conversation to be said that he could be a starter. We just have to see proof of concept on the field first before saying that.
Here's the thing, and I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm asking you out loud because it makes for better radio, right? When they release the first depth chart at running back, there's a strong chance, Travis, that it says Bashaw Tootin or Chris Rodriguez, right? So by that logic, either of them are core depth in any particular time, right?
I expect that is exactly what it's going to say. 1A, 1B, whatever you want to call it, and then they're going to let them figure it out in off season, especially because we haven't even seen Rodriguez practice yet. But yeah, I mean, that's probably how it's going to work out. And then Gladstone's obviously done way more work with the trades. Jacoby Myers being a hit, that was an easy one. Then you have a few guys where I'm like, it was hard to call it a miss, but it is what it is. The Greg Newsome situation, we know that was a consequence of getting out of the Tyson Campbell contract, and you just got something back. If he never got anything back from the Tyson Campbell trade and just found a different way with working in numbers to make that happen, no one would have blinked an eye. But he got Greg Newsome back. They had to play him. He does count as a miss under this roster, but also I understood why it happened. It is what it is. Yeah. Tim Patrick was a hit. I mean, I can't call him a hit because he wasn't a starter in that way, but as far as core depth, he was brought in and he did exactly what they wanted him to do. Whether or not they re-signed him, whether or not he's still here, I still think that was an easy thing to say. That was a hit, but since I'm not labeling him as a hit, he's absolutely core depth as your 3rd, 4th wide receiver there. Colin Saunders, not here. Easy. And Rook Ororo is, we believe, will be core depth that Mason Smith wasn't. That's
right. We got to put the list fundamentally like this, Travis, right? If I said to you, who were the 2 starting defensive tackles? He's not one of them.
Sure.
Very simple.
Sure. Yeah, but I say even the statement that he's core depth is projection. And I want to be clear in saying that.
Yeah, okay, got you. Yeah, I didn't even think of it that way. Good point.
Yeah, because again, if Rook Ororo became the next Colin Saunders and doesn't actually produce on the field, he would then be categorized as a miss. That is purely projection from our stance, hoping that they can flip this guy who was a top draft pick into playing like one, because he didn't in Atlanta. We'll see if that happens. But as it currently stands, I'm going to project him to be core depth, and we'll kind of move forward and see what that's going to become.
I had to point out because Reyes got jokes. I heard Tootin's been firing minicamp.
Yeah, that's a mess. Yeah. That's a mess. Shout out to the fantasy guys. Y'all make me laugh all the time, bro. Because they be saying some wild stuff, man. And so eventually, no, do you have any comments you want to hop over before we
Well,
wrap
yeah,
this
there
thing
was
up
some
and get this
comments
started?
I'm holding for afterward because there's some
Okay,
general statements
we can get
that
into
the
it then.
divers are asking. I will say this. Preston really liked our list for Baalke and how we laid that down. So, hey, I mean, if we got Preston agreeing with us on the Baalke list, that's worth something. But go
That's
ahead.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Hey man, eventually there's going to be a day when James Gladstone is he's going to be detached from the Rams background. He'll be detached from all the Baalke comparisons.
We'll have to end the drinking game here on the Duval dive.
But that's only going to come with more time, unfortunately. Like, so we, in the moment we're just talking about, it's going to come with more time. It's going to come with more wins. And for now, the only thing that I can convincingly say is that it's both different, but also in some ways the same as 2022. When I'm looking at Trent Baalke versus James Gladstone. And I want to be honest and say that, like, there's some similarities, there's some real big takeaways. So when we're looking at the summary of what these guys brought in, what these guys did with this free agent classes, like James Gladstone, about 30% of these guys ended up being starters, another 23% of these guys being core depth, with about 40% of them being misses. But Trent Baalke, 40% hits, 20% core depth, 33% misses. And overall, Trent Baalke had 21 guys brought in. James Gladstone had 16 evaluated. Again, this is not everyone. We established that there are a few lower guys that we didn't evaluate. Sorry, not sorry. Go ahead.
And here's the thing. Here's what we want to be careful, because even as you and I, who are data men, as we profess constantly, something we need to account for is maybe Baalke would be a better GM if his miss column was a little higher. But Kyle, how does that work? That means he moved off the mistakes. He didn't invest in good like they were great. He didn't hold on too long. He didn't have an ego to carry him so he could try to prove himself past Arya and Sansa. Sorry, I'm getting stuck in
Tell him.
But the punchline is, if you had more misses, if you moved off of dudes quickly, like we've seen and lauded in praise Jimmy Stones on this show, Travis, maybe he would be better off. Maybe there wouldn't be so many comments in here saying that he needs to burn in Duval, Hades.
That's what I'm talking about. From now on, that's how you drive. That's what I'm talking about. Sorry, that's a bad boy reference.
No. Hey, I love the reference, but on this show, you say, that's how you dive.
No, you ain't relying, man. Gladstone's not afraid to miss, and there's the benefit to that, because he does have a lot more misses comparatively to Baalke, but there are also a lot more low risk moves. Let's be clear on that piece also. So he basically added a lot of buy low candidates, hoping that they would become something. And that's why making a lot of these moves on one less year. Because again, we're talking about like 17 guys compared to like 21, with a whole less year working with overall. And also being hamstrung by Baalke's cap situation. So yeah, Baalke had more hits, but it was also at a time where it was easier to have more hits. I think someone said it earlier, like the cupboard was more bare for Baalke early on, because he was coming off of that Urban Meyer season where I got to revamp this whole dang roster at this point. So the bulk of those 2022 free agents were brought in to open up a lot of those, to fill those open holes, where that's where Baalke gets credit. Like, he does deserve that credit. He raised the floor. He gave the pieces that now ended up becoming some of the floor for this 2025 season. And because the cupboard wasn't bare for Gladstone, that's going to then result in more misses, unfortunately. But fortunately, that means you need better guys being brought in to raise the floor over those veteran guys who were already previously there, like a Foye Louis Khan. You know what I mean? So, like, in that way, you're, like I said earlier, like, Gladstone is playing on all Madden at that point, because you're raising from, because the being able to become from the worst team in the NFL to being an average NFL football team is probably easier than being from an average team to being an incredibly good football team. That jump there means you're like hitting on all cylinders, and that's where Trent Baalke failed, and that's where James Gladstone is now being challenged.
Storm the Desert in the comments. Baalke was getting players. Stones and Cohen are on the same page on building a team. Baalke was buying groceries for burgers, but his chef was a sushi chef. There's a lot of there. And I've been holding on to that comment for a minute there, Storm. I agree with it 100%. percent there
Agreed.
too. King David in the comments, Baalke didn't do what was best and killed us financially. And he also mentions that he can go to Duval, Hades. Well, and that's cool too, David. I'm not. You're right to that. And then another concept store throws in, if the Jags have another season like last year, they're going to start becoming a destination for free agents. I think you need more than 1 year for that. But let's put a pin in that storm and explore that another point. But to your point, that uptick would be fascinating, because then it would truly mark the culture being flipped in Duval.
I think folks thought that Jacksonville would become a destination this offseason, but it didn't materialize yet because they don't have the funds truly available. That's the other piece of it, is like, it's still gonna come down to money. The money got to be close. Maybe you get me in the top, 5. We're talking like a 5%, 4% difference in money. Then yeah, we could talk about whether I'm more comfortable being here, because the difference between $10 million and $9 million is a small difference. But if you're talking the difference between like $5 million and 10, well, hey man, I'd be uncomfortable in the snow, and warming myself with my money at that point. Like, I get why that's a different conversation. So yes, the success on the field matters, but also the money matters. And right now, the money is just not where they need to be yet.
So, and I'm going to throw this out here just because I see this concept out there a lot, and I think it's a good thing to close on. But maybe this will trigger a whole other pod, but Kyrie Simon in the comments, in my opinion, the Jags need to be on the line for with the Oakland Raiders and pursue the trade for Max Crosby, offer JHA or Trayvon. They could choose which, and next year's first. Okay, so there's a couple things I'm going to get out the way before I let you go to work on this, Travis. For one, this comment assumes that Max Crosby's healthy. That's bold in itself, because we've already heard those murmurings, and that his health was part of the reason that the Ravens got cold feet in the first place. So I'll let you take it from there if you have more there, Pando.
I mean, that's just not going to happen. It's just, that's when you're talking medicals and everything else, like, and then you're also talking about getting rid of, like, it's just not going to happen. I don't see it. I don't even want to go too deep into it, if I'm honest. Like, I don't see it. Because one, yes, it's medical, but also two, you just signed Trayvon.
Now, here's where I'll meet it in the middle. Here's where I'll meet. To your point, they did just extend Trayvon. That's what I was waiting for. Here's where I'll meet in the middle. Some franchise, if Crosby shows he's healthy, will make a midseason trade for him. God, hopefully it's not the damn Rams. But
I gotta hope not, man. I gotta hope not, because Lord, they are in on everything at this point. But I guess my biggest takeaway from all of this is the fact that both teams were clearly built on free agent glue guys. That's the only thing I hadn't seen anybody in the comments actually mention. Is both of these teams, as most early teams are, they're built on those free agent glue guys to give those draft picks time to develop for those first few seasons,
etc. Yeah.
But the quality of both of these guys, both James Gladstone and Trent Baalke, is going to come down to their hit rate in the draft, how they're able to get off that cycle of being forced to lean on free agency. So when people talk about Jacksonville being a free agent destination, I'm like, is Green Bay a free agent destination? Not really. Is Pittsburgh a free agent destination? They will sign them every so often, but not really.
Yeah, I think that's more about the Rooneys and the way they run the show than everything else.
That's what I'm talking about. I think they need and want, because of the finances, to be a team that's going to get cheaper, and the young talent has got to step up. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, as it currently stands, I believe they're $10 or $11 million over the cap in 2027 right now. Like, they can maneuver a little bit, but that automatically tells you some of these young guys have to play next year. So we need to be looking at these young guys and figuring out who's going to be the one to step into these spots. Who are guys on this roster that you expect to be extended that will not be extended because they need that young, cheaper talent to play next year? Maybe we can get into that on Wednesday. I don't know.
Hell, you mentioned next year, bro. Like, we mentioned that something that had to happen last year to get that success. And it's a matter of when they produce those young guys, if they do, not just if, but when. into next year. And yeah, we can get into the specifics of that another time. I think that'd be a very interesting topic. Let us know, divers, if that's one of the ones you want. I know Travis has been researching his entire butt off with some cool stuff in the can, but I just wanted to address that particular, just to kind of put the Crosby talk to bed. Because let's be honest, we both guys are paid for. Okay. Like, we don't need another. Your edge is just another thing. Oh, look at you teasing. Look at you throwing a trailer out there for the people that like it. Yeah, Reyes, don't worry. We're going to be talking about Brenton in the future. You hit it there. By the way, Travis, something else that the future should bring. We may have been talking about the past, but another offering here, and I'm just doing this more because you did a good design on this. We haven't needed this concept here on the Duval Dive for some time, but we do have a revamp of This Team Makes Me Drink.
My favorite shirt. I own 2 of them, but I felt like it was time to redesign it and get a new one out there. Let's go. In the Duval Dive, what is it? Printify store. We have the link in the bio, or link in the description. If anybody wants to check out any of the merchandise and the other hats and the other shirts that we have. But man, this is my favorite shirt. Hopefully we won't need to use it no time soon, but also put it in your inventory just in case.
Be realistic, because all teams have a cycle. Hopefully you won't need it for another 10 years. Maybe you want to get a size up just in case you gain some weight. I don't know.
Something like that.
So with that in mind, wow, what a quest that episode was, and a great Father's Day gift from us to you divers and the Duval Belt out there. Travis C. Holmes, tell the world, my man.
Well, I mean, bigcatcountry.com. Obviously, it needs to be saved as your favorite. You obviously are supporting local journalism. You're listening to us, but do us a quick favor, man. Yeah, like us on the YouTube side, rate and review us on the audio side. It helps us out tremendously. Also, if for those of you also listening on the YouTube side, please not just like the video, hype the video. I just learned what hyping was this past week, but it helps the small creators kind of get to the top of those leaderboards, and it also pays us. So, help us out there. Like it, hype it, and comment, and just help us out with this algorithm, because again, it costs you nothing, but it helps us out tremendously. And we appreciate you guys spending your Father's Day with us. I do hope that you contacted your fathers, assuming you have a relationship with them. And if you don't, this would be a good year to kind of get that rectified, man. Don't have no hate in your heart. Let's just it's Duval versus all y'all, and we consider them Duval even if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, because Dad, they make bad decisions sometimes. It is what it is. But yeah, man, Travis D. Holmes on all the socials, bigcatcountry.com, and the Duval Dive Podcast. We appreciate you guys as always. Let them know where you can be found, bro.
We already have our first request from Storm the Desert. No pressure stand.
I can work on that tonight, but I don't know. I hopefully it's not needed again.
Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as a student of the game. Check out my writings with UCF Night Zone, covering UCF, as well as my work on Locked On UCF. Check out my work covering the Storm, the Orlando Storm, on the Storm Surge podcast with BP. But Kyle, the season's over. There's still plenty of UFL things to talk, and we have been at it. Make sure you check our latest episode that drops tomorrow with Superfam, the Brahma Babe herself. That's a whole thing that could takes us through a great conversation, and we talk about whether or not the UFL is actually a farm system. Why it isn't. Hear about it, check it out on the Storm Surge, as well as my work covering the Orlando Magic. Got some stuff in the hopper there. Hopefully some decisions can be made, and I can announce things to you there sooner than later. So for all you divers out there, thanks again if you celebrate Happy Father's Day, and for all you dads and you pawpaws out there, right? You grandpas, thanks as well. So for my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes, for you divers who took it deep in the comments, once again, this is Kyle Nash, student of the game. Until next time, everyone, class dismissed.